No babysitter lasts a day with Billionaire's Quadruplets until disabled black Maid steps in and shocks everyone. What if I told you that 4 tiny voices could bring a grown man to his knees? Marcus Wellington stood in his marble foyer, watching yet another babysitter flee through his front door, her designer bag clutched tight as she practically ran to her car. The sound of crying echoed from upstairs. Not 1 child, but 4. His quadruplets, barely 3 years old, had just claimed another victim in what seemed like an endless war against every caregiver he'd hired. Marcus ran his hands through his graying hair, feeling older than his 45 years. Since Sarah's death 2 years ago, he'd tried everything. The most expensive nannies, the highest recommendations, even a team of caregivers. Nothing worked. The children had become wild, unreachable, and he was drowning in his own home. As the crying grew louder, he wondered if he was failing the only thing that mattered to him now. Where are you watching from tonight? The Wellington mansion sat like a fortress of loneliness on Beacon Hill, its 23 rooms echoing with memories of happier times. Marcus had built his tech empire from nothing, but success felt hollow when he came home each evening to chaos. Emma, Ethan, Oliver and Sophie, his beautiful children, had become strangers to him, their laughter replaced by tantrums and tears. "Daddy's hiring another lady tomorrow," he'd overheard Emma tell her brothers that morning, her small voice carrying the weight of too much understanding for a 3-year-old. "She'll leave too. They always do." The truth stung because it was accurate. In 18 months, 37 babysitters had quit. Some lasted hours, others managed a few days, but they all reached the same conclusion. The Wellington children were impossible. Marcus knew better. His children weren't impossible. They were heartbroken. They'd lost their mother, and now they pushed away anyone who tried to fill that void, testing each new caregiver until they proved what the children already believed, that everyone leaves. Clara Washington had been cleaning the Wellington. Home for 8 years, arriving every Tuesday and Thursday with her quiet dignity and gentle smile. She moved slower now since the accident that damaged her left leg, but she never complained. Marcus barely noticed her presence, which was exactly how Clara preferred it. She'd seen the parade of defeated babysitters, heard the children's cries, and felt the sadness that hung over the beautiful house like morning fog. "Mrs. Washington," Marcus said that Tuesday morning, catching her as she polished the banister. "I don't suppose you know anyone who might be interested in childcare? Someone patient, someone who—" He trailed off, exhaustion clear in his voice. Clara paused her cleaning, studying the man she'd watched transform from a grieving widower into someone barely holding on. "Mr. Wellington, those babies upstairs aren't bad children. They're just scared." Her words were soft but direct, spoken with the authority of someone who'd raised 4 children of her own. "Everyone says that," Marcus replied, heading toward his office. "But scared or not, I'm running out of options." As he disappeared down the hallway, Clara looked up the grand staircase where 4 little faces sometimes peeked through the rails, watching the world below with eyes too serious for their age. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon when Marcus returned from a board meeting to find his latest hire, a stern woman with impressive credentials, sitting on his front steps with her suitcase. "I've never encountered children so deliberately destructive," she announced, refusing to even enter the house to collect her final payment. "They need professional help, not a babysitter." Upstairs, the quadruplets had barricaded themselves in Oliver's room, having painted the bathroom walls with Clara's expensive face cream and somehow flooded the playroom. The mess was spectacular, but it was the silence that worried Marcus most. No crying, no arguing, just 4 children sitting in defeated quiet. Clara was still there, methodically cleaning the bathroom despite being an hour past her usual departure time. She worked around the painted handprints on the walls, her movements careful but determined. Marcus found himself watching her, noticing for the first time how she hummed softly while she worked, the same lullaby his mother used to sing. "Mrs. Washington, you don't have to clean this up. I'll hire a service tomorrow." These little hands made this mess because they needed something to do with all that hurt inside, Clara said, not looking up from her scrubbing. "Hurt's got to go somewhere, Mr. Wellington. Better on walls than in hearts." Her words hit him harder than expected. When had he started seeing his children as problems to be solved rather than people to be loved? "I don't know what to do anymore," he admitted, a confession he'd never made to anyone. Clara straightened slowly, her hand bracing against the wall. "Would you mind terribly if I stayed late today? Maybe fix them some dinner. I used to make my grandbaby the best mac and cheese in Mississippi before." She paused, a shadow crossing her face. "Before I lost her. Sometimes I miss having little ones to fuss over. If this moment is touching your heart, if you can feel the weight of a father's desperation and a grandmother's longing, please give this video a thumbs up. It means more than you know." That evening, as Clara's gentle voice drifted from the kitchen, Marcus heard something he hadn't heard in months: his children laughing. By Monday morning, Marcus had made a decision that surprised even him. "Mrs. Washington, I have an unusual proposition. What if I doubled your salary and you became their full-time caregiver? I know you have your cleaning route, but I'm desperate." Clara's face showed surprise, then something like fear. "Mr. Wellington, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure I'm what those children need. I'm not educated like those other ladies. I barely finished high school, and my leg—" She gestured toward her left side, where she favored her right leg when walking. "My leg doesn't work right since the accident. I can't run after them like I should. What if something happens and I can't keep up?" The vulnerability in her voice reminded Marcus that everyone carried their own fears. Clara had been a single mother, raised 4 successful children, and now lived alone in a small apartment in Dorchester. Her granddaughter Keisha had been her whole world, until leukemia took her at age 5, just 6 months ago. Clara had been driving to the hospital when the drunk driver hit her car, leaving her with a permanent limp and a heart still healing from double loss. "Mrs. Washington, Clara, those children don't need someone who can run. They need someone who can love." Marcus sat down beside her on the kitchen stool, speaking more honestly than he had in years. "I've hired Harvard graduates and child development experts. None of them lasted 3 days, but yesterday you had them laughing. When did you last hear them laugh?" Clara thought about it, her weathered hands smoothing her apron. "When their mama was still here, I suppose. Mrs. Sarah had a way with them. She'd sing while she cooked, let them help with everything, even if it made twice the mess. She wasn't afraid of noise or chaos. She said, 'That's just what love sounds like in a house full of children.'" The silence stretched between them, filled with shared grief and unexpected understanding. Finally, Clara spoke. "If I say yes, I do things my way, no schedules written by experts, no fancy educational toys that make noise but don't make memories, just love and patience and maybe some cookies when they're sad." Marcus nodded, feeling hope flicker in his chest for the first time in months. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by a situation that seemed impossible, only to find help from an unexpected place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The next morning, Clara Washington officially became the guardian angel the Wellington family didn't know they needed. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it began with small miracles. On Clara's first official day, she arrived at 6 in the morning, not to clean, but to cook. The smell of bacon and fresh biscuits filled the house as 4 curious children crept downstairs, drawn by aromas that reminded them of comfort they'd almost forgotten. "Y'all hungry?" Clara asked, as if their previous behavior had never happened. She'd set up a small step stool by the counter, preparing for little helpers. "I could use some assistance with these biscuits." Emma, the boldest of the four, approached first. "The other ladies never let us in the kitchen." "Well, honey, I'm not the other ladies. In my family, everyone helps make the food taste better with love." Clara's voice was warm molasses, sweet and slow and healing. She showed them how to pat the dough gently, how to crack eggs without shells falling in, how to measure flour by scooping carefully. For the first time since Sarah's death, the kitchen came alive with children's chatter. Oliver spilled milk, but Clara just handed him a towel and showed him how to clean it up. Sophie got flour in her hair, and Clara simply dusted it out while humming. Ethan, the shyest, stood watching until Clara gently took his small hand and helped him stir the pancake batter. "Why aren't you yelling?" Emma asked suddenly, her 3-year-old directness cutting through pretense. Clara paused her stirring, meeting the little girl's serious eyes. "Baby girl, there's nothing here worth yelling about. Messes clean up, spills dry up, but harsh words, those stay in little hearts forever. I don't want to put anything in your heart that don't belong there." Marcus, watching from the doorway, felt tears he'd been holding for 2 years finally break free. This woman understood something he'd forgotten. His children didn't need fixing. They needed accepting. The real test came that afternoon when Oliver had a meltdown, throwing toys and screaming for his mother. Previous babysitters had either yelled back or called Marcus home from work. Clara simply sat on the floor beside the sobbing boy, her bad legs stretched out carefully, and began singing the same lullaby she'd hummed while cleaning. Slowly, Oliver's cries subsided. He crawled into Clara's lap, and she held him while he grieved, her voice steady and sure. If you're finding hope in this story, if it reminds you that healing is possible even in the darkest times, please subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales like this one. That evening, when Marcus came home, he found all 4 children asleep on the living room floor around Clara, who was reading them a story despite her exhaustion. 6 months later, the Wellington house rang with different sounds. Laughter echoed from the kitchen, where Clara taught the children to make her famous cornbread. Arguments still happened, but they were the normal disputes of siblings, quickly resolved with Clara's patient mediation. The children began sleeping through the night, eating meals without battles, and most miraculously they started talking about their mother without dissolving into inconsolable tears. "Miss Clara," Sophie asked one afternoon while they folded laundry together, "are you going to leave like the other ladies?" Clara set down the small shirt she'd been folding, her heart breaking a little for the fear still hiding in these precious children. "Honey, I'm not going anywhere unless your daddy decides he doesn't need this old lady anymore. And even then, I'd probably come visit just to make sure y'all are eating your vegetables." The children giggled, but Emma pressed closer. "Promise?" "I promise, baby girl. Some people come into our lives for a little while, and some come to stay. I'm a staying kind of person." Marcus, who'd been listening from the hallway, realized Clara had given his children something no amount of money could buy: the security of unconditional love. She'd shown them that adults could be trusted, that care didn't have conditions, and that their mother's death didn't mean they were destined to lose everyone they loved. The change in Marcus himself was equally remarkable. Clara's patient example taught him to slow down, to listen to his children's needs behind their behavior, to understand that grief was a process that couldn't be hurried or hired away. He started coming home for lunch, joining the kitchen cooking sessions, and reading bedtime stories again. "You saved us," he told Clara one evening as she prepared to leave for her own home. Clara shook her head, smiling. "Mr. Wellington, families save each other. That's what love does. It makes room for everyone at the table, especially the broken pieces that don't think they fit anywhere." On Emma's 4th birthday, she made a wish that her 3 brothers echoed, that Miss Clara would stay forever. As they blew out the candles together, Marcus knew some wishes were already granted before they were spoken. The Wellington house was full of life again, proof that healing comes in unexpected packages, often wearing an apron and carrying enough. Love to fill the emptiest spaces. If you enjoyed this story of second chances and the power of unconditional love, please like this video, share your own thoughts about unexpected angels in your life in the comments below, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Thank you for joining this journey with us. May your own home be filled with the kind of love that heals.